Okay, so tomorrow you have a test. The test is going to cover 2.5 to 2.9. And on the test, there's 20 questions. On questions number 1 through 3, you're going to have to use the distributive property. You're also going to be combining like terms. So for example, I think this was very similar to question number 1 on your quiz. But for example, this is involving distributing and then combining like terms. Remember, when you have a question like this, you're going to distribute the 3 first, not add the 8 plus 3. So I'm going to distribute it. I'm going to put the 8 here. I get 15x minus 27. And then I can group my like terms here of the negative 27 and the 8, leaving me with 15x minus 19. So you're going to get a question similar to this, just like you did on the quiz. And then you're going to have another question that might be a little bit more complicated, where you're going to have to do some distributing first and then combine like terms. You did the same thing on the quiz. So I'm going to distribute the 7 to the 4, and I get 28x. Then I distribute the 7 to the negative 3, and I get negative 21y. Then the 7 to the 2z, and I get 14z. Now I'm going to also distribute the negative 5. I'm treating this as a negative 5. And I'm going to distribute it to the 3x and get negative 15x. Distribute the negative 5 to the negative y and get 5y. And then finally the negative 5 to the 4z, negative 4z. So I treat this as a negative 5. This messed some people up on the quiz because they left the subtraction sign there, but then they forgot to distribute it to everything. So if you treat that as a negative 5 versus distributing a positive 5 and then having to remember to subtract each one of those, it's easier to distribute it as a negative 5. So now I'm going to combine my like terms, and I have a like term here with the 28x and the negative 15x. When I add those together or combine them, I get 13x. Next, I have the y's that I can group, and negative 21y plus 5y gives me negative 16y. And then I can group my z's, and 14z plus 20z gives me 34z. Questions 4 through 6. This is going to be multiplication questions. So you're going to get a series of numbers. For this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count how many negative numbers I have. So notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative numbers. Because 4 is an even number and I have 4 negatives, I know that my answer, because 4 is even, is going to be a positive answer. If I just go through and count how many negative numbers I have at the beginning, then I just can go back and multiply the numbers. And remember, multiplication is commutative, so it doesn't matter the order that you multiply them. I'm just going to go ahead and take them 2 at a time. So, for example, I'm going to do 4 times 7 and get 28. 5 times 9 and get 45, and then 3 times 6 and get 18. It really doesn't matter what you do. If you'd rather do the 2 big numbers first, like the 7 and the 9, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it might be easier to do things like the 5 and the 4 and get a 20. But whatever's going to work for you. So here, now I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to multiply these 2. And 28 times 45, bless you, is 0, 4, 1, and then 2, 1, 1. And then when I add that, I get 1260. And now that gave me 1260, and now I'll multiply that with the 18. So 1260 times 18, and I get 0, 8. And then I'll add that up. Final answer 22,680. And because I saw that my answer was going to be positive, this is my answer, 22,680. So you will have a multiplication question where you're just going to multiply a bunch of positive and negative numbers. Then you're also going to get another question where you might have to multiply things with variables, just like you did on the quiz. So again, I'm going to count how many negative signs I have. So I have 1, 2, 3 negative signs. So 3 negative signs, 3 is an odd number, so this tells me my final answer is going to be negative. And then now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start multiplying. This time I'm going to jump around. I'm going to do the 2 big numbers and get 99. And then I'm going to do the 2 next size and get 42. And now I could probably do 42 times 4 pretty easily. And then I'm going to get that answer and I'm going to multiply it with the 99. Again, the order doesn't matter of how you multiply. You can pick and choose. But once you use it, you might want to cross it off to remember that you already used it. So 1,512 and then 2151. This gives me a grand total of 16,632. And remember, I counted my negative signs. It was an odd number, so my answer is negative. And then I also have to go through and add in my variables. I'm going to write my variables in ABC order. It just makes it easier if you do it that way. So I have a B, a Q, a T, and an X. So I have to represent every letter. So that would be your answer there. Now, we could have also, as soon as I see that I'm timesing something by 99, I could sort of use reverse like distributive property. So if I know 99 is 1 away from 100, some people are really good at doing things like this. I could do 168 times 100 minus 1, and this might help me to do it mentally. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it this way, but this would give me 16,800, and then I could just subtract 168, and then it would go right to my answer. Bless you. Just a little way of how you could apply distributive property. 7 and 8 are going to be just like the quiz, where you're going to be given a word problem. 7 and 8, you're going to write an equation, but you're not going to solve it. Okay, just like you did on the quiz. Then 9 and 10, we're going to write an equation and solve it using a given domain. So, for example, we're going to be given 4 consecutive integers. And remember, when we set up our equations and we're writing consecutive integer questions, my first integer is x. My second one is x plus 1. My third integer will be x plus 2. And my fourth one will be x plus 3. Now that I've defined my variables, now I'm going to go through and use them in my problem. And this problem said the product, so that means I'm going to be multiplying these consecutive integers, of the smallest, so this will be smallest, and this will be largest. So the product of the smallest with the largest is, that's my equal sign, 14 more than the product, again, of the middle two. And these are my middle two. So I'm going to multiply them. That's a plus sign. So then now I have x plus 1 times x plus 2. And that's the equation, and we do not solve. On 9 and 10, we're going to write the equation and solve it. So for number 9, this time it's asking for consecutive odd integers, and there's 3 of them. So my consecutive odd could be x, x plus 2, and then x plus 4. That would be the first 3 consecutive odd integers. So now I'm going to write my equation. So here it says, find 3 consecutive odd integers such that the product of the smallest, so this is my smallest, and the largest, so the product means multiply them, is 35 more than 10 times the middle. So 35 more than 10 times the middle. And now, in addition to writing the equation on this one, they're also asking us to solve it. And we're going to use the given domain. Now, on the quiz, there was more than one answer. I'm not sure about the test. I think there's only one answer on the test. I will confirm that for you. So once you find it on the test, you can stop. So I'll try the first one. I'm going to plug in 7. And then 7 plus 4 is 11. And then 35 plus 10 times 7 plus 2. And then here I'll get 77 is equal to 35. And this turns into 10 times 9. So 35 plus 90. And we can already see that this is going to be way too big. So on the right side, so I'm going to throw that one out. Let's try, I'm going to jump to 15. So if I do 15, or I'm sorry, I'm going to do 11, do the middle one. 11 times 11 plus 4, which is 15, and then 35 plus 10 times 11 plus 2, which is 13. When I multiply 10 times 13, well, let me work left to right. 11 times 15 is 165, and then 35 plus 130 gives me 165 equals 165. So I just found my smallest integer. So my 3 integers are going to be 11, 13, and 15. And you need to write all 3 on the line. Then the next section of the test, the instructions are going to say simplify. So here, you might have to simplify a fraction, you might have to distribute, and then combine like terms. So on this one, remember when you multiply by 1/3 or 1/5, it's like, for the 1/3, negative 1/3, it's like dividing by 3, negative 3. If I were to multiply by 1/5, this would mean divide by 5. So a little shortcut to maybe speed things up. So here when I multiply by negative 1/3, it's like I'm dividing it by negative 3. So I get negative 9x. Then when I divide negative 48 by negative 3, I get positive 16. So I'm done. This one, you can just simplify the fraction. You don't have to divide it. You don't need to make it a decimal. So I could divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5 and get negative 2/5. So if it says simplify, I want you to reduce the fraction. Just like in last night's homework, you're also going to get an average question. Now you might have seen average represented in middle school as also called the mean. So average means you're just going to add up the numbers. So I'm going to add negative 1 plus 5 plus 8 minus 2, get that total, and then I'm going to divide by however many numbers I have. So negative 1 plus 5 plus 8 minus 2 is going to give me 10. Got to watch your signs. And then I'm going to divide that by 4. And I'm okay with you just leaving it improper. Now, if you want to make it a decimal, it's going to give you 2.5. If you want to make it a mixed number, it gives you 2.5. But I'm okay with you just leaving it like that. And then 17 and 18, just like in last night's homework, the instructions are going to say evaluate. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace A, B, C, and X, Y for our variables. So A is 3, B is -4, C is 6, X is -7, and Y is 2. So now I'm going to follow order of operations. I'm going to multiply the three numbers on the top. So 3 times -4 is -12, times 6 is -72. And then the bottom, -7 plus 2 gives me -5. And the only thing I really want to see you simplify in this one is a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And you can leave it improper. If you decide to divide this, make sure you do it carefully if you want to try to make it a decimal. I would just leave it improper. So 2 evaluate questions. And then the last one, or the last 2, again, are going to say simplify. So just sort of like the beginning, maybe a little bit more complicated. You're going to distribute. Again, think of 1/5 as dividing by 5. So 15x divided by 5 gives me 3x. -20y divided by 5 is -4y. And 5z divided by 5 or multiplied by 1/5 is just z. Now again, I'm going to distribute this as a -1/7. And again, when you multiply by 1/7, it's like dividing by 7. So I'm going to distribute it. And I end up with, for this distributing, I get -7x, -10y, and positive z. Now I need to go back and combine my like terms. So I have like terms with the x's. So 3x minus...
Mrs. Irlanda, your appointment 7:30 is here in the main office. Mrs. Irlanda.
Okay, so now I'm going to combine my y's. So -4 minus 10y is going to give me -14y. And then I'll go through and grab my z's. And remember there's a 1 here, so 1z plus 1z is 2z. And you're done. So 20 questions on the test tomorrow. I've given you a breakdown, so you can always go back, look for similar problems in the homework, and also in the chapter review and the chapter test that you're going to complete for homework tonight.